Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gananjara Sharakaya Chakshu Vilitam Yena Tashmae Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Karamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Samjivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakambitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Panamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyasha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So where are we in the Nectar of Devotion?
Yeah, we completed the second last section of chapter 9, seeing the deity.
Okay, you told me, yeah. So you want to recap a little bit between the two of you?
We just went through last time with Chandra Prabhu with all this. We just read the whole thing and we're discussing a bit in between about certain points, like various limbs of devotional service. In that considerations like blasphemy that we should avoid, and other things like tilaka wearing, tilaka accepting the flowered garlands, with an aspect like kirtana, dancing before the deity. All these things we discussed. Various limbs of devotional service, circumambulating the temple, archana, all those aspects.
Okay. So when you get lost, this is also for you, Goloka, Devidasi. When you get lost, you look at chapter 6. Chapter 6 basically delineates the 64 angas of Bhakti. So it's very clear. Right there, you can look it up. There is 20 items of primary importance and 44, which are guna, secondary. Within the first 20, you find 10 pravriti and 10 nivriti. 10 to be accepted and 10 to be rejected. So that's where we are. We covered that. Then now we entered the 44 gunas, secondary. Within that, you find 30 items of sadhana. And we will discuss at the very end the Panchanga Bhakti. We'll keep that for the very last lesson of dealing with the 64 angas. So this is just to remind you where we are.
Yeah.
So now we are further into this chapter 9. It looks like he didn't complete it, did he? No.
No.
No. Okay. So I'm referring to the original text now, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So I'm trying to find exactly where you guys stopped. Did you cover the circumambulation, the parikrama of the Vishnu Mandir, as quoted by Hari Bhakti Sudodaya? Deity worship, you covered that? Bhuta Shuddhi and all these things? Because
Yeah, we covered that part of seeing the deity.
okay.
I'm referring nectar of devotion, seeing the deity part that is there. We have covered that part.
Yeah.
The Vara Puran mention of
Oh yeah,
seeing the deity of
Purana.
Vishnu.
Okay, I can see that now. Oh yeah, you almost completed the chapter actually. Okay, I got you. You almost completed the chapter. You went beyond Archana. Chanting the names of the Lord, Nam Kirtanam, you covered that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think we're submission or something, isn't it?
And Jap, you covered Jap?
Yeah.
At the very end of this chapter, there's a very important section. I don't know if you touched on it.
Submission.
Lala Samayi, Vigyapti, all these things you covered or not? This is the very end of it.
I think
Sampratanatmika, Vikyapti, all this, there's different. This is
Yeah,
very,
we covered that part. Yeah.
wow. So you guys finished basically. Then it's called
We didn't
Denya.
discuss that in detail, but yes, we covered. We just read through it from the nectar of devotion, and
Yeah.
that's how we went ahead.
Okay. So do you want me to go again into those different, there's different types of, it's called Vigyapti. And one is prayer, the other one is Denya Bodhika Vigyapti, means admission of worthlessness. And you feel extremely
Yeah.
You covered that?
Yeah, we covered that. I just had like one doubt, like regarding that.
Okay.
Like Lalsa Mai, it says that desiring some perfectional stage. We desire something, not like material desire, but spiritual desires. We desire perfectional stage. That is Lalsa Mai. And
Yeah.
like Prabhupada says that it comes in the stage of perfect liberation. Like when we attain like maybe a siddhi or perfection, he says technically Sarupa Siddhi.
Yeah.
So is it that a practitioner or practicing devotee cannot pray in the Lalsamai way, like desiring a perfectional stage, or should he just pray in Dainya Bhodika or just Samprathatmika? His Lalsamai not like if someone wants to pray, can a devotee who's practicing can pray, who's still in the stage of Anartha Nivritti, that he has not crossed Anarthas, can he still pray in that mood of Lalsamai?
Yeah, you're right. Lala Samayi is the last rung of the ladder. It's like longing, very great longing. So if you look at the book of
Right.
Danuda Maharaj, it makes it very clear. Lala Samayi occurs at a much more advanced stage than Sampratatmika. Basically, it says here, when one realizes something of his constitutional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is a prayer to be reinstated in our specific eternal service to Krishna Swarup Siddhi. So, yeah, in other words, better to, I mean, if you're on that level, why not? But prior to that, there's three levels, as you know. Samprata Natmika, you express your heartfelt desire for Raganug, spontaneous devotional service. Then Denya Bodhika, expressing your worthlessness, insignificance before the deity. Then Lala Samayi. Lala Samayi, it's more advanced, obviously. You ask for specific spiritual realization, perfection. So that implies that your sambandha is much more reestablished by then. Famous verse is there from Padya.
Like I've seen.
Yeah.
Yes, true.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just mentioning like I have seen like in the book Prarthana, like Narottama Das Thakur normally praise in that mood, no, like desiring that perfection. So devotees can read that, right?
Yeah, sure, you can read.
And
you
meditate
can
on
read,
that. Is
you
it?
can
Is
read.
it? Yeah.
No, it's totally
Well, at
fine.
least that way we can cultivate that
Yeah, of course.
desire too, right?
It's definitely very much wanted. Pratana, Chandika.
Prabhupada said we should always just chant,
Chant
you
all
know,
these great
the,
prayers of
the
the Granacharya.
now Vaishnav Bhakti Vinod and Narottam Das Thakur,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, because they always like
Yeah.
pray, you know.
Even though you're not there
Yeah.
yourself, but it's very conducive. Yeah, definitely. It falls under, the famous verse of Padyavali, Tatraloriam Pimuryam Ekalam.
Hmm.
We should have Loriam. Loriam means ardent desire. And Janmakoti Sukritya Nalabhyate, it's way beyond Janmakoti Sukritya. Way beyond. You cannot, Nalabhyate, you cannot obtain this by Janmakoti Sukritya, by just pious deeds, heps of pious deeds. It takes Loriam. That is why at this stage you fall into the category Lala Samayi. So you're right, because this will put you beforehand, even if it is beforehand, it will put you in the right mood, the right frame of mind, expressing your eagerness for meeting the Lord, Sambhog, and serving him in a particular way, according to Ragatmika Bhakta in Vrindavan, you start to follow their mood. This is the particularity of a Raganuk Bhakta. He follows the mood of a particular Ragatmika Bhakta. And of course, it culminates into crying, just like Govind Maharaj used to say. He said, I didn't open temples, I opened crying houses. He used to say that. Well, it looks like you guys finished, actually. Because after that, this is the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
Well, of course, according to, because Danoda Maharaj doesn't put everything in his book, I noticed that. So back to the original manuscript, there's more, actually, there's more, a little more in the original manuscript. So let's deal with that. We are into Bhakti Rasamrita into 1 to 156. This is another verse coming from, it is expressing the mood of Lala Samayi. O lotus-eyed Lord, when will I dance on the bank of the Yamuna with tears in my eyes while singing your names? This is the mood as advocated by the Goswamis. Lalita, Vishakha, where are you? They are roaming the land, Keshigads, Vamshivata. They are searching. Never will they say, I found Krishna. Did you notice? Even themselves, they are manjaris. Still. So, Jiva Goswami explained that this verse I just mentioned to you, it looks like it's a Sampratana type of verse. At first sight, Jiva Goswami says that, but no, he doesn't agree. And he reminds us here that Sampratana already, it's someone on Bhav Bhakti. So we can see we are flying quite high here. Even some Pratana belongs to someone without the appearance of Bhav. Without the appearance of Bhav. The other way around. Whereas lalasa or prayers with intense longing belong to a person who has manifested Bhav. So that's the other way around, Lalasamaya is from Bhav onwards. From Pratana is below Bhav. Then he goes, when a prayer, Sampratana, is filled with a similar longing, expressing such bhav, even though it's not attained, then it's called lalasa. Very interesting. That's why we say lalasamayi. It's a similar longing. So you may not be exactly at the level of bhav as yet, but because you are expressing this eagerness for perfection, even though you're not fully there as yet, it's called lalasa. Thus, this example is classed as lalasamayi. Prayers and longings such as these are given here to illustrate the topic, but actually they should be understood to be examples of Raganuga Bhakti. Now we are moving ahead to totally different anga, reciting compositions of verses of praise. You are reciting verses, but they are more into the forms of praise. The wise consider that the Gita and the Stavaraj contained in the Gautamiya Tantra are examples of stava. You have seen, like I teach BV, and we always recite Krishna Lila Stava of, not the whole thing, it's huge, just a few shlokas of Krishna Lila Stava pertaining to Srila Sanatana Goswami. Before each class I do that, because Buddhajan used to teach us like that long back. So it's called a stava. Stava means composition of praise, you know. And in this Krishna Lila Stava, it's beautiful. The whole book is glorifying Bhagavatam. It's a beautiful book, Krishna Lila Stava of Sanatana Goswami. So commentary of Jiva Goswami. The Gita is called Stava because its contents glorify the Supreme Lord. Stavaraj here refers to the stava in the Gautamiya Tantra. Then he quotes, this is Rupa Goswami now, quoting Skanda Puran. The perfected sages and the devatas respect those whose tongues are ornamented with the abundance of jewel-like verses of praise of Krishna. Nishinga Puran, he who praises Madhusudan with stotras and stavas in front of his deity form is freed from all sins and attains the planet of Vishnu. Oftentimes there's a devotee here, his name is Charles. He's not even initiated, but he's been around for, perhaps, he was in India for decades. And he always chants very loud, praises to Krishna. And as soon as you enter, he stops. He only chants when he's alone. Very loud. You can hear from 100 meters. He likes that, So this is definitely for him, this verse. And he's freed from sins and attained Vishnu Loka. Jiva Goswami, though stotra and stava are non-different, there's still some slight distinction. The former is not composed. Stotra is not composed. Like you have seen Yamunacharya Stotra. Yamunacharya was in the line before Ramanuj. Stotra are not composed, but they are found in scripture, whereas the latter is self-composed. Stava are self-composed. Stotras, which are not composed by oneself, but composed previously, are for practicing using one's speech. It's beautiful, huh? When you don't know what to say, then you just might as well sing a stotra or read it at least. The stavas created by the devotee express his individual emotions. Nevertheless, here it has been said that the wise consider the Gita to be a stava. Gita is also a stava because you glorify Krishna. This is because the reciter practices speaking of written praises. Gita in its Stotra portion, but with intense personal devotion, its Stava portion. So Gita, it looks like it's both. That means it's Stotra because obviously Gita was composed by Srila Vyasadeva. But if you put your heart in reciting Gita, then it becomes also Stava. Stava means personal input. You put personal input, like Krishna Lila Stava, it's personally a book written by Sanatana Goswami. That is his own volition, his own input. Devagre, ideally should be Devagre. Devagre means in front of the deities. Now we're jumping to a different angle, totally different. Tasting the food remnants of the deity from Padma Puran. He who always eats outside the inner sanctum, the remnants of the Lord's food, sprinkled with water from the Lord's feet, mixed with tulsi, achieves the results of 100 billion yakya. Can you imagine? 100 billion. Good. Koti Punyam. Shiv Goswami on this. The phrase Purato Murare means from the temple Antapuram of the Lord, with a verb participle missing. The real meaning is after going from or avoiding the temple room of the Lord, Purata Murare also means in front of Murari. But such a meaning is rejected since eating in front of the deity is an offense. Yeah. Vishwanath also on this verse, taking Purato Murare to mean in front of Murari, chewing tambul in front of the deity would be forbidden. But regular eating is not forbidden in front of the deity. See, they differ. Sometimes it happens. Grand acharyas may differ. Jiva Goswami is saying it's an offense to eat in front of the deity. Vishwanath says tambul is forbidden, of course. Tambul means like bell leaves. But regular eating is okay. Sometimes it's mind-boggling. In ISKCON, we can eat, but provided the curtain is pulled. Next, tasting the foot water of the Lord. Padma Puran, those who drink the foot water of the Lord achieve the supreme goal, even though they have not performed charity, sacrifices, Vedic study, or deity worship. Next, smelling incense offered to the Lord from Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. The action of the nose smelling the incense offered to the Lord fully destroys the poison of karma inflicted on those bitten by the snake of material existence. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Smelling the Lord's incense destroys the poison in persons bitten by the snake of samsara. It is the very form of destroying karma, nasyam karma. Smelling the mahoshadi incense with the nose destroys karma. Smelling the garlands offered to the Lord from a tantra. When the fragrance of the garlands of the Lord enters the nostrils, immediately the bondage created by piles of sin is destroyed. Vishwanath, the phrase Pap Panjara Bandhanam means bondage created by piles of sins. Agastya Samhita. It is said that the noses smelling flowers and gandha offered to the infinite Lord is the cause of complete purification in this world. Jiva Goswami, Anantasya in the verse refers to the infinite Lord, and this word is modified by Achirtasya, worshipped. Smelling by the senses, agaranam, granasya, the flowers, and scent offered to the infinite Lord, architasya, anantasya, are said to be causes of purification in this world. Iha. Now, next is touching the deity. From Vishnu Dharmutar, the pure, faithful person who touches the deity of Vishnu becomes freed from the bondage of sin and attains all desires. Seeing the deity, I guess you guys have reached that far. Wow, you had reached,
Yes, Guru.
you had reached. This is where you had reached actually. I started. I backtracked too far back. Seeing the deities from Varaha Puran. Okay, this is the place. You guys stop. O earth, those who see Govind in Vrindavan don't go to the city of Yam, but achieve pure bhakti, the goal of all punyas. Jiv Goswami, speaking to all people the glories of seeing the deity and speaking of all forms of the deities, the author, overcome by ever-increasing devotion, particularly glorifies seeing Govind, Bhagwan, the most excellent form of the deity. Bhakti is the highest goal of the human being. Therefore, the wise consider bhakti to be the goal of all punyas, pious actions. Thus, punya kritam gatim, the goal of those who do punyas, actually means bhakti, the final goal of all punyas, as understood by the wise. Vishwanath on this one. Punya kritam gatim, the goal of those who execute punyas, pious acts, is a phrase to attract the materialist, glorifying bhakti for material results. The author will later explain that the chief result of bhakti for those without material desire is attraction to the Lord in the form of rati. Yeah, I want to discuss about that because I'm teaching BV and we are in the section of Queen Kunti. This reminds me something here. I can see Srila Prabhupada is very, very close to Vishwanath because in many purports of Queen Kunti, Srila Prabhupada does say that actually Archana Vidhi is for the neophytes. It's quite blunt. Huh? He's saying, why do you think he says that?
Because we don't see Krishna everywhere, we just see Krishna in the deities.
Exactly. This is exactly the answer. So he says, it's a must for people at large to go to the temple. Not only us, but even outsiders. That's the only way they can relate to Krishna because they are not on the level as we discussed before, Lala Samayi, or even prior to that, the previous rang. They cannot relate so much to Krishna on the subtle plane. They have to see. As we say, seeing is believing. So they have to see the deities. And I'm glad that Vishwanath says that because it sounds like Prabhupada here. Again, this is what he says. Punya kritam gatim, the goal of those who execute punyas, pious acts, is a phrase to attract the materialist, glorifying bhakti for material results. Most of the people who come to the deity are for material results. And we know Rupa Goswami will make it clear very soon that we should approach the deity with no material desires, especially out of attraction for the Lord, which is already bhav or rati. So, yeah, anyone want to add up anything? Is it clear? Now, next thing, the arati of the
Like,
Lord.
Prabhu, I had one question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear you.
Prabhu, like in Archana, like normally we say that no, Archana is like, as you said, that most of the times we see the deity as like some stone or some wood, like we have metal conception of the deity,
Pama Purana.
especially neophytes don't understand that. Yeah, it's not like they think it is different from the actual form of the Lord. But I was just wondering, like, why we, as a Gaudiya Vaishnavas, like, we aspire, for the power of the Manjaris, right? And what I have observed is that the Archana process is very close to the service that Manjaris do. It's very, very close. Like, if you see the process of Archana, like applying tilak or whatever the process that is involved in the entire deity worship, it is very close to the what the highest aspiration of the devotee in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is. Uh, is it helpful in that way in the higher stages?
Yeah. You mean to say, is it helpful if you meditate on the manjaris when you worship the deity?
I like for example, Manjaris have a lot of services which are very much similar to what the pujari does for a deity, right?
Yes, yes.
Ornamenting and
Yeah.
all those aspects which are there, it's very much similar, almost.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what we aspire, right? One day. That is
So if you do that in the mood of achieving yourself spiritual perfection, it's called Lala Samayi, And you may not be there as yet because Lala Samayi, as we discussed, is touching Bhav or Rati, but it's an inclination. You get an inkling into it. Lalasa means, as we just discussed from Jiva Goswami, it's almost there. Lalasa. So as long as you can follow in the step of the Pragatmika Bhakta, even if you're not there as yet, it's very good. It's extremely good. Huh? It says here, we discussed today, when even though it's not attained, but you have a similar longing as the great soul who are there, who are into Rati and Bhav, or even further, it's good for you.
I have a point. They say that deity worship is for neophyte, but the thing is that Prabhupada introduced deity worship all over, and the one point that Prabhupada said that we cannot see Krishna everywhere. That's why Krishna descend in Archa Vigraha, so that we can learn how to serve Krishna.
Exactly. And you can see very clearly in Sri Upanishad Mantra 6, we discussed long back. Oftentimes, Prabhupada very bluntly, he puts the pujari into Kanishtadikari. Because, again, but be careful, you can find a pujari who is on a siddha. That if you go to serve, I used to, by Krishna's grace, to serve under Jananivas Prabhu. I mean, it's not the Kanishtadikari at all.
Yeah.
So, but oftentimes it's true. You do, why do you, Jiva Goswami says, we should do, especially Grihastha, we should do puja because there's a lot of lust in the Grihastha ashram. If you're not careful, you can easily fall into the trap. So by doing Grihastha and puja, it will purify that lust. That is why he says, Jiva Goswami, this is a must. You cannot, it's not an option for Grihastha. You have to.
And another point also they made is that we do deity worship because we always relate to the body. We're always in bodily concept of life.
Yeah.
So the form of the Lord is not different from Krishna himself.
Yeah.
That's a way we can be free from bodily conception also.
Yeah.
By worshiping the transcendental form of Krishna. Yeah,
no, it's extremely healthy. Because see, to be a pujari, you have been pujari most certainly, certain portions of your life. It takes goodness. Otherwise, you cannot last as a pujari.
You're right.
You have to get up. The head pujari will tell you, okay, you do 6 o'clock, and you do, by the way, Friday you do Mangalarati, and Thursday you do Rajbog, and so you have your whole week choked out. You know, you cannot say, well, today I'm not going to get up. You know, there's no way. It takes goodness to last as a pujari, because you have to be punctual, you have to be very clean.
Mm.
Otherwise, Krishna will kick you out. It doesn't mean you're not a good devotee, but you're not very.
Yeah.
You
Don't qualify yet.
you know I've seen devotees very good book distributor also, you know, and they're not good pujari. So we have to be careful also to label people. Oh, he stands nowhere, but perhaps he distributes 100 books a day, you know. So, you know, but I have seen devotees, very good book distributor. There's one here. I forgot his name, Brahmachari. But as soon as he comes back to the temple, what he does, he does puja. He's very pure devotee.
Mhm.
And I noticed books, but when it comes back, up puja. So it's a great combination. No? Because this is always the same story. Prachar, achar. You may have a good prachar, but bad achar. And you may have a good achar, and you're not so much a preacher. So that's why Sanatan used to say to Haridas, you're the best, because you got perfect achar, perfect prachar.
Like we say, all the Goswami also, they were, you know, they were so elevated, but they still worship the deities.
Yeah,
Like
to show the example.
Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, you know.
Yeah. Yajata Sariti Shrestha Tatati Vitarajanaha. Of
Mhm.
course, definitely. They were themselves. By a good portion of the day, they went to deity worship.
I think for
Mantra.
them, they are a very high level, right? Their conception, the eternal conception is that they serve the Lord in the same way, you know, in the Manjari's form, and they see that in a non-different way. We don't often do that. We see that DTS materials.
Yeah. You know, because there's so much passion. Even when you are told to do puja, okay, you do a little bit, but if you're not very advanced, you don't really
Relish.
relish. Yeah, you just do it mechanically. It's like chanting Hare Krishna. You can also do it mechanically, you know. So after some time, the head pujari will see he's not a fool, you know. He will see this guy can help, but he cannot be a part of my team. he can pop in once in a while when there's a dire need. You know, he won't tell you anything, but to be a head pujari, you have to be ahead of the others. Huh? You're running the whole show, the whole project. Means
I did this service.
you're quite advanced. Head pujari, you can see. I mean, it's like a sacred part of ISKCON, you know.
Yeah.
You find the devotees, but in the early days, we used to say the topmost are the book distributors. I would say, if you ask me now, after 40 years, I would say I think the topmost are the pujaris. Because, you know.
There's a lot of austerity. It's just like you have to be punctual. You have to be
clean.
Clean in all kind of weather, you know, you have to wake up.
Well disposed, you know, you have to have got good consciousness, otherwise you're going to make a blunder, you're going to make some seva parad, you're going to drop something on the floor, you know, you make a fool of yourself. You're going to knock yourself.
And constantly being a pujari doesn't mean only you do the artis. There's so many, you know, like, you know, taking care of all the stuff, the paraphernalia, the cleanliness of the pujari room, and make sure the deities have the best offering and the best.
That's why
there's a lot of things involved.
Yeah, a real pujari is full-fledged pujari. He can cook. Myself, I just pop in to do an arati or two, you know. But they know this guy is useless, so just give him 1 or 2 arati, and he doesn't ask me many times. Of course, I'm busy elsewhere. I'm teaching and stuff, but you know, I've seen pujaris. They are just round up, they can cook, they can do the arti, they can clean, they're just, they're
And
they're like a fish in water.
every festival, you have to make sure you have
Yeah.
the
No,
best one.
for me, they are ahead of us, ahead of me at least. That's for sure.
It's a lot. It's a hard work and a lot of
Yeah. They are
dedication.
extremely steady and always good mood, very sattvic, always smiling, equipoised. Otherwise, you cannot last long. If you become angry, Krishna will kick you out in no time. Make a parade and you don't, just, Krishna removes you on the spot. Okay. So seeing the deity, we discussed now. I made the point that, well, of course, Prabhupada tends to stick to Vishwanath. Prabhupada is definitely a preacher. It's Goshtananandi. Seeing the arati of the Lord from Skanda Puran, the face of Vishnu lit by the light from the artic lamp burns up 10 millions of sin. Of killing Brahmins, can you imagine? 10 millions of sin. And 10 million sins committed in the past and to be committed in the future. People will say, no, it's exaggeration. Come on. It's Krupa Goswami. Jiv Goswami on this one. This verse speaks of seeing the artic of any of the authorized deity forms. Kotaya is a substitute for Koti. Mukam face is the subject of the sentence. Seeing the festivals next from Bhavishyotar. The dog-eaters and other low persons who joyfully see Krishna, ki see Keshav on his chariot, all becomes associates of the Lord. I mean, it's mind-boggling because you may say, well, it's so easy, but the problem is we don't stay there. You may have seen, may have see the chariot when you were 10-year-old, but after that so again you're back into performing sins. So Jiv Goswami, the chariot rat festival represents all other festivals as well. All those serving who see the Lord on the chariot, and even those who are low-born or have bad qualities, Svapachadaya, become associates of the Lord. Devatanam Ganaha. Amazing, huh? Next, the word Adi refers to seeing the worship as illustrated in the Agni Puran. He who sees the Lord with devotion, faith, and joy after he is worshipped or while he's being worshipped attains eternal service to the Lord. Jiv Goswami. Yoga means Kriya Yoga, mentioned in Panchalatra, which means services to the Lord. Vishwanath. Pujamanam means while the worship is being conducted. Yoga means devotion in the form of the service to the Lord as described in Panchalatra. Next item, hearing, Shravanam. Hearing means listening to the names, qualities, activities of the Lord. Hearing the names of the Lord from Garud Puran. Hearing the Vaishnav mantra Krishna, which is the only effective medicine to counteract the bite of the snake of samsara, a man becomes liberated. Hearing the activities from the fourth canto, 429-40. In that assembly, excellent streams of nectar of the Lord's Leelas emanating from the mouth of the saintly devotees flow everywhere. Those who drink that nectar with eager ears, with constant thirst, O king, will forget the necessities of life, namely hunger and thirst, and become immune to all kinds of fear, lamentation, and illusion. There's a verse like this. The saffron particles, you know that verse, Ignesh? The fourth canto. This is beautiful. You know, it says, someone who hears a pure devotee, the saffron particles of his feet will purify that fellow. Let me find it for you. It's let me open with the base. 730.
What chapter is it?
It's fourth canto. Let me open with the base. Alors, it's a beautiful verse. Saffron particle. If I type saffron particle, I will see it. Saffron particles. Alors, peut-être. Oh, no. It doesn't appear. It's really a shame. Yeah, it doesn't appear. Peut-être there's only one F to saffron, no? There's two double F, saffron, no?
Saffron, S-A-F.
There's one in the
devotion.
No, it's in the fourth canto. Oh yeah, I got it. This is the verse. 4:20:25. It reminds me of this one. 4:20:25. It's spoken by. It is when Lord Vishnu appears in the arena of Maharaj Prithu. Beautiful verse. Listen to that. So, my dear Lord, you are glorified by the selected verses uttered by great personalities. Such glorification of your lotus feet is just like saffron particles. When the transcendental vibration from the mouth of great devotees carries the aroma of the saffron dust of your lotus feet, the forgetful Jiva gradually remembers his eternal relationship with you. Devotees thus gradually come to the right conclusion about the value of life. My dear Lord, I therefore don't need any other benediction but the opportunity to hear from the mouth of a pure devotee, of your pure devotee. See, saffron particle. They carry, when they speak, they carry the aroma of the saffron dust of the feet of Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. So that's the mechanics that awaken your slumber. And number two, you come to the right conclusion. This is very powerful. The saffron particles, this is how it works. This is a bit like what we just read, 4:29:40. This one was 4:20:25. Jiva Goswami. The profuse shesh, rivers, sarita, of pastimes of Krishna transformed into words, mukharita, and emanating from the devotee's mouth in the assembly tasmin of devotees, flow everywhere. Mukharita means transformed into sound or words. The sentence suggests that the activities have spontaneously turned themselves into words with their proper meanings, since they flow like rivers. Shesh here means excellent. Vishwanath, the profuse shesh, rivers, sarita, of pastimes of Krishna, which are loudly spoken by the devotees in the assembly of devotees, tasmin, flow everywhere. Anger, thirst, prit, and we see asat trishna. It's one of the impediments on the path. Asat trishna means thirst for material objects. Hunger, thirst, fear, lamentation, and illusion Don't touch those who drink that nectar with constant thirst through attentive ears. And there's a verse in the first canto, Yasyamve Shunamarayam Bhakti Yogaya Dukshaje. It says it's 177, I believe. Yasyamve Shunamanayam Krishna Param Purushe. Bhakti Upadhyate Pumsam Prokamoha Bayapaha. And this is, those 4 verses are 1, 7, 4, 5, 6, 7, extremely important. They represent the purpose of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. They are as important as Chatushlaki. The last one of those 4, 177, Yasyamve Shruyamanayam Krishne Param Purushe Bhakti Upadhyate Pumsam Shoka Moha Baya Pumsam. Sorry, Baya Paha. Simply by 177, simply by giving oral reception to this Srimad Bhagavatam, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of Shoka Baya Paha, lamentation, illusion, and fear. See, this is the power of Bhagavatam. It sprouts up. This is amazing. Even you may not be even fit, you have no adhikar, but it sprouts up still. If you give all rapt attention, this is what it is. The Bhagavatam is practically the last word in mercy. Who is the holy name?
They say in this verse is simply giving oral reaction to Vedic literature, mean only Bhagavatam? Yeah.
Of course, this is the last verse of the 4. See, if you know the intent, the intent of those 4 verses, you know it's talking about Bhagavatam. As I said, those 4 verses spoken by Sutta Goswami represent the purpose. If you want, we can spend 5 minutes on those 4. First one is 174. Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Pranite Male Apashyat Purusham Purnamayam Shadadapashrayam. See, it's occurring right after Vyasadev's predicament, despondency. Remember, he was not happy. He had composed everything. Of course, he how do you say? He had what's the verb? Not written, but there's another verb quite similar to written. Forgetting the verb. He didn't write the Vedas, as you know. Vyasadeva only wrote 3 books. He penned 3 books. He compiled, yes, this is the verse. There's a difference between compile and to write. Compile means to arrange. So even though he had arranged, compiled everything, even after penned himself the Mahabharata and Vedanta Sutra, can you imagine? It's quite lofty. Still, he was not happy. He concluded himself, well, I didn't glorify enough Lord Krishna. Then right on the spot, who came? Narad, his guru. He confirmed, yes. Confirmed. He told him what, actually, the word is quite heavy. Narad is telling, Shugupsitam, what you have done is abominable. Can you imagine? He has written, he has compiled Vedic literature, and his guru is telling him, Shugupsitam, it's abominable. Because why? In essence, because you are giving leeway to the masses to fulfill their material desires by means of Vedic literature. So, my dear Prabhu, he calls him like this, my dear Prabhu, like you mentioned yourself, you better finish off. Remember, he had already written. He had already given the blueprint of Srimad Bhagavatam. If you read 178, it's very clear. After Narada has gone out, he left. He's going to go back to the task. He's going to, in his full maturity, he's going to finish off Bhagavatam. Prior to all these events, he had already given the guidelines of Bhagavatam. He never finished it. So now, right after Narada leaves, this is the verse 174. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranite male apachat purusham purnamayam shadara pashrayam. So what happened? He fixed his mind, engaging it, linking it in full devotional service unto the Lord with no tinge of materialism. And then he saw Krishna vividly. He saw Krishna. And right behind Krishna, he saw Maya, which was under his full control. And then we are at the threshold of Kali Yuga. You can see the whole predicament of Kali Yuga. Yaya samohita jiv atmanam trigunatmakam parupi manutenertam tatkripam savipadyate. Then this is what he says also. You understand, due to this external energy, the jiv, even though is totally superfluous, is totally transcendental to the gunas, he sees himself as a product of material energy, and thus he undergoes the reaction of material miseries. We have nothing to do with it, but because we consider ourselves, we think of ourselves as a material product, because of that only we undergo the miseries. And then 176, anartu pasamam shakshat bhakti yogena manasi bhati yogama dokshaje lokasya janato vidvam shakre sadvata samitam. This is your answer now, Goloka. So this is your answer. Why it says 177 is Bhagavatam and not the book. 176 is very clear. Sutta Goswami explained the material miseries of the jiv can be, which are superfluous again to him, can be directly mitigated by the process of bhakti. But lokasya janato vinvam, most of the people do not know this, that it can be mitigated by the process of bhakti. And then it appears, Sadvata Samitam. What's the meaning of Sadvata Samitam? This is Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore, Vyasadeva, the learned Vyasadeva, he compiled this Sadvata in relation with Krishna, Samitam. He compiled this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in relation to the Supreme Truth. And then final verse 177. Yasyam Veshnam. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam. Those 4 verses mark the whole purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam. They are compulsory, and when you do BV, you have to learn those 4. Okay, so back to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So now next anga is hearing the qualities, quoted from 12th Canto, 12.3.15. The persons who desires pure devotional service to Lord Krishna should hear the narrations of the Lord. Uttama Shlok. So it's not an option, it should hear. It's compulsory. Glorious qualities, the constant chanting, which destroys everything inauspicious. The devotee should engage in such listening in regular daily assemblies and should continue his hearings throughout the day. Can you imagine? Papa used to say sometimes, just read Bhagavatam all day. He did say at times, just read all day. Jiva Goswami, one should hear every day, Nityam, constantly, Abhikshnam, description of the qualities of the avatars of the Lord and his devotees, Uttama Shlok, which are sung by great devotees. This means that one should do that with great enthusiasm. The result of such hearing is stated here, pure bhakti of Krishna. One who desires pure bhakti to Krishna should hear in this way. Here Krishna means particularly the Lord in the form of a gop, since the Bhagavatam denotes this form of the Lord as Bhagavan Swayam. And this is true. When we hear Satyam Param Dimahi 111, this is gop. This is the gop. The Swayam Roop of Krishna. Next, expecting the Lord's mercy. Very famous verse, you may know Vignesh. This is the verse one should wear as a chain, like a dog. Prabhupada said, he said, we should wear this verse like the collar. The dog has a collar, and from the collar there is a leash. So he says that verse 10, you know the verse, Goloka? 10:14:8. One of the most important verses of Bhagavatam. Tatenu kampam susamek shamano bunyaname vatma kritam vipakam ridvagvapu birvidadan namaste jivita yo muktipade sa dayabhak. A very important verse. Brahma is speaking actually. He says, my dear Lord, one who waits, earnestly waits for your mercy. But all the while he waits for it, but all the while, what does he do? He serves. He serves you. Rit Vagvapurbir with his heart, his words, and his body. Vapurbir means body. And still he gets the result, the token reaction of the results of his past misdeeds. While he waits, while he serves, Rit Vagvapurbir, still he gets somewhat token reaction. And then he carries on, he doesn't budge an inch. He carries on to offer respectful obeisances unto you. And then Mukti Pade Sadaya Bhak. Mukti becomes his rightful claim. Prabhupada says you just have to hang out, to stay around. Then you will inherit the kingdom of God. This is 10:14:8. Vishwanath, Jiv Goswami, in this verse, two different sadhanas, expecting the glance of mercy and offering obeisances, are mentioned together to glorify their exalted positions. They should both be understood to have great results. So expecting the glance of mercy, and number two, offering dandavat. Muktipade means the Lord. See, do you know the story with Sarvabhauma? Sarvabhauma, when he was freshly initiated, converted into Bhakti Seva, and he changed that the word from Muktipade to Bhaktipade. And he told Mahaprabhu, I cannot bear anymore, because he was such a staunch Mayavad. He's Brihaspati himself on earth. I cannot bear anymore, so I'm changing Bhaktipade. So Mahaprabhu told him mildly, yes, but you cannot do that. You cannot change the word of Bhagavatam. Muktipade means the Lord, the shelter. Now remember, what is the 10th topic of Bhagavatam? Samambanam, Ashraya. This is Ashraya. So Muktipade means, which is the 10th topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is, if you want to know, 210.1. 210.1 explains the 10th topic. That's why Bhagavatam, like Vishnu Puran also, is Mahapuran, because it's got 10 topics, not 5. Regular Puran has 5 topics. Okay, such a person becomes the rightful claimant of the Lord, who is the shelter of liberation. The Lord exists as the property to be apportioned to the devotee. Vishwanath, understanding the meaning of this topic, having given up all other practices and performing only bhakti, one will attain you. However, in what manner should a person do this? In expectation of such a question, this verse is quoted. Tat here means therefore, indicating that because of the glories of the Lord mentioned in the previous Bhagavatam, 10.14.7, the devotee acts in this way. Atma Kritam Vipakam means happiness and suffering that occur during performance of bhakti. Then he quotes 1 to 9, Kamasya Nandriya Priti, Damasya Yapavagasya Natota Yapakalpate, Natasya Devikantasya Kamolavaya Hismitaha. This is Sutta. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Just stop me if you have anything to say. So here, Vishwanath is quite lengthy. He said, a secondary unsought result of bhakti is happiness. It's not the primary. The results of aparad are distress. Experiencing both of these results from his bhakti, atmakritam vipakam, the devotee sees this susamik shamana clearly. Stu for shushtu, and accurately sam for samyak, as your mercy. Yeah, because in the beginning, unfortunately, as long as you know, as long as the remnants of punya karma, anadi karma, all these different types, prarabdha, aprarabdha, some are still lingering. So while we perform, even though they are greatly diminished by the grace of the Lord into a token reaction, still they come whatsoever, even though diminished. So we should not be baffled and come to the conclusion, how come I'm still suffering? I thought that everything should be eradicated. You have seen in the Bhagavatam, it says, Nasta Preshwa Badeshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaye, Bhagavati Utamashloke, Bhakti Bhavati Nishtiki. It says almost to nil. It's annihilated almost to nil. Because why doesn't it say totally null and void, nullified? Because we need the body to work, to serve. And the body is the proof of prarabdha karma. Our body is the proof of prarabdha karma. So we need that karma to function as a devotee too. But the body, unfortunately, is still prone to diseases, falling sick, and etc. So that's why we have to bear, while serving, we have to bear the possible sickening of the body, frailties and stuff. Sometimes devotees say, well, he's sick, so that is his karma. Yes and no. But let's see how he reacts to his karma. And in that verse, 10.14.8, if you read the purport, because it's not Prabhupada anymore, it's the, the Bhagavad, those three great devotees, Ridhana Maharaj, late Gopi Pranada Prabhu, he left, and the last one, the third one is, what is his name in San Diego? Very great soul. Forgetting. He's still alive, I think, Prabhupada disciple. They say, no, it's not the karma. It's Krishna's soft hand pushing on your weakness of heart. He doesn't agree that it is karma. See, it is mentioned here. He knows that the happiness and distress that he is experiencing stems from the Lord's mercy alone. We should not conclude that devotees go through his karma. It is just like a father who sometimes makes his son drink milk And sometimes he makes his son drink bitter juice, like nimble leaves. I don't know, but the Lord, like a father, knows what's good and bad for me. And thus sometimes he embraces and kisses me, and sometimes slaps me. I, his devotee, have no power at all over karma and time. He alone, by his mercy, makes me experience happiness and distress and makes me serve him. The devotee considers his situation in this way, in the manner of King Prithu. Prithu prays like this also. Okay, next is remembrance. Somehow or other, connecting the mind to the Lord is called remembrance. Yeah, we can, there's so many, this is coming from the 7th canto. There's a verse, one way or the other, we should connect to Lord Krishna. Whether it be favorably or unfavorably. Favorably is better. But even unfavorably, there is benefit. You have seen Kams out of fear, Shishupal out of envy. You know, they benefited. They benefited. Putana became Datri, a nurse. Shishupal got Sayuja Mukti. So no one goes at a loss if he contacts Krishna, even negatively. I surrender to the unborn, eternal person, Hari, by remembrance of whom one takes possession of all auspiciousness. See, remembrance of the holy name immediately destroys heaps of sins committed by men. Meditation, contemplate with absorption on the Lord's form, qualities, pastimes. Meditation on these 2 feet. Consider the means of attaining freedom from the dualities. Even a sinner, can you imagine, if he meditates, attains the highest result. Even the sinner, even if it is casual, not as a sadhana even, will attain most excellent benefit. Absorption. Meditation means absorption, skillful contemplation. One of those 3 stages in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Vignesh, remember Manasa? There's 3 stages I'm trying to remember. One is Manasa, contemplation. There's 3 stages. It's in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Meditation on the qualities also. Meditation on the pastimes. All these qualities, all these activities grant you liberation. Meditation on service to the Lord. All these things will grant you liberation. Now he's going to give the story of, it is in Brahma Vivar Puran, that story of Pratishtana. You know that Brahmin from Pratishtana? Okay, I think I don't know this story. Though he was poor, he was peaceful, considering that he was reaping his karma. Being of sincere mind, one time he heard about Vaishnav practices in an assembly of Brahmins. Hearing that these processes could bring perfection just by engaging the mind, the impoverished man began to practice this. Finishing his Nitya Karma rituals after taking bath in the Godavari, becoming peaceful in mind, he would sit down in a solitary place and perform the preliminaries of worship such as pranayam, etc. Becoming steady in mind, he would mentally establish the deity form of his dear Lord. Mentally putting on fine clothes, he would offer the lamp, the Lord his respects, pulled up his clothes, and began cleaning the Lord's temple. Offering respects again, he would bring water in gold and silver pots, from all the theaters headed by the Ganga, and gather various materials for serving the Lord. After bathing the Lord, he would perform arati and offer items befitting a king to the deity in his mind. After completing that worship, he would experience great happiness, which would last the whole day. After practicing for some time in this way, he would once prepared in his mind some milk rice sprinkled with ghee and put it in the gold pots for the Lord to eat. In doing this, his two thumbs happened to enter into the preparation that was bubbling from the heat. Realizing what happened, he exclaimed, "How unfortunate, this offering has been spoiled." With sorrow, he rejected the offering. His samadhi then broke, and he felt great pain because of his burned thumbs. Understanding this, the Lord, seated in Vaikuntha, laughed. Lakshmi and others asked him the cause of his laughter. Then the Lord brought him in Viman to his side and showed Lakshmi his burnt thumbs. He then fixed the Brahman permanently by his side because of his qualifications. So he went back to Godhead like this, to Vaikuntha, by Manasa Puja. Yeah, you are very silent today. Yeah, it's quite lengthy, yeah. Let's see how far are we. I can try to.
I think this is the last section of
We are.
10th
I'm
chapter.
I'm
Nectar of
into
Devotion.
1-2-183. So I can tell you. Yeah, you're right. You're very good at pinpointing where we are. We almost. Yeah, we finished chapter 10 already. Can you imagine? Actually, I'm going to teach you for quite a few weeks. And he told me the next 2 weeks is still me. He's traveling around as usual.
Yeah.
Chandra is always. I think he's going to go inside the Guinness Book of Record. The guy is always on the go. I'm on the go, man. He beats everyone.
A
So
single
next
man.
week you'll be there.
Sorry?
No responsibility, just travel and
Yeah, this is, I mean, everyone has his own style of living.
Mm.
No wife, no kids, so. But after some time, you must be also. I think I like traveling, but perhaps not that much. Okay, so acting as a servant. I'm into 1-283 here. So obviously, this falls from, we are already in chapter 11, by the way.
Prabhu, which book are you reading?
I'm reading
The-
straight from the original Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Okay, it's so different.
Yeah.
Oh,
Banu Swami, you know Banu Swami Goloka?
Yeah. yeah.
The great soul. He
Mhm.
has translated, there's 4 volumes. This is number 1.
Mm.
There's 4 volumes with commentary of Jiva Goswami Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Yeah, because here basically it's just, enunciation of items and
Mm. So you don't read from the Nectar Devotion, like
yeah, I've
Orig-
got Nectar of Devotion here, right here,
yeah.
but it's in French. And Jaita Maharaj told me he told me himself that it's very badly edited. He told me 20 years ago. So I know in Northeastern Europe, they are redoing it. I don't know if in America, or is it like there, or if they have redone it.
Mm. Not that I know. I know they just use the Nectar Devotion.
You know,
Mm.
I never actually, to be honest, I never read it. I read when I started getting involved into that topic. I immediately read this book of Damodar Maharaj, which I like. It's quite well articulated. Plus, I've been reading this for years, the original commentary. So, acting as a servant. So we are talking about dasyam here. Offering karmas and considering oneself a menial servant. So here, Rupa Goswami is saying, this dasya is distinct from the dasyas tayyibhav and dasyaras that appear after sadhana bhakti, though related. Srila Rupa used the term pritaras instead of the more common dasyaras. Yeah, there's a difference here. This dasya. Pritaras. Jiva Goswami, offering the prescribed varnashram actions, karmarpanam, is considered by some to be dasyam. Like, 424 in the Gita. Huh? Whatever you, karmarpanam, brahmadagniya, whatever pertains to the yajna, if you offer with love, it's karmarpanam, it's absolute. The ghee that you offer, the priest, the utensils, the couples getting married, or you getting first initiation or second or sannyas, whatever. All participates of the absolute platform. So that is dasyam.
We are now discussing about Novida Bhakti.
Sorry, Prabhu?
Are we discussing now about the 9 limbs of devotion? Novida Bhakti?
Yeah,
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Sadhanam,
I'm into chapter
Dasyam, Sakhyam. That one?
I'm into chapter 11 now. Savita Dasyam, can you see? Kamarpanam and Kinkaryam. So Rupa Goswami doesn't agree. He says, no, this is not Kamarpanam, this is Kinkaryam. Kinkaryam means kinkar. Kinkar means servant. Kinkarya means we should consider ourselves menial servant. According to him, this is the proper definition of dasyam. One should identify as a menial servant. Servant, yes, but menial. And then he quotes Itihas Samuchaya, one who has the attitude of being the servant of Vasudeva for thousands of births can deliver all people. And then he quotes Sridhama Vipra, sorry. Life after life, may I have love, friendship, sympathy, and service, dasyam. The dasyam mentioned by Sridham means being in the position of a servant, according to Sridhar Swami. The action of Kenkarya consists of paricharya. There is no real difference between this dasya and paricharya in its pure form. I mean, this is chapter 11. Huh? If you want to search for it in the English, I've got the French book here. Let's see chapter 11. I guess it starts with the same. Yeah, manifestation of divine service. It's talking about attitude of service here. Yeah. So, let's see. Now we're coming to the first type, offering karmas. It's described in Skanda Puran. Karmas, according to one's nature, offered to the Lord become Bhagavad Dharma. See, as soon as you offer your karma, your activities, your action, then it becomes Bhagavad Dharma. Rupa Goswami agrees with that, like Vishwanath. Vishwanath also, he places Nishkam Karma Yoga within the realm of bhakti. What to speak of actions of bhakti dedicated to the Lord alone? Buddhism, you always to tell us that what is the difference between karma and bhakti? Very simple definition. In karma, there is still this notion of doership. I'm giving it to you. Yad karoshi, yad asnashi, yad jiroshi dadasi. So this is mine, Krishna. I'm giving it to you. So it's okay, but there's still a tinge of illusion because nothing belongs to us. Whereas bhakti, you have given everything. So apparently, for an outsider, he may say, "Well, the karma yogi is better. He's giving $5 million. Can you imagine?" And this poor fellow doesn't give nothing. Be careful. This poor fellow has given his life. So he's by far superior. But still, Vishwanath, Prabhupada, and even Rup Goswami says here, very interesting, yeah? He quotes Skanda Puran, karmas according to one's nature offered to the Lord become Bhagavad Dham. So they all agree, yeah? Rup Goswami, Vishwanath, and Srila Prabhupada also tend to put Nishkam Karma Yoga into the realm of bhakti.
So, become Bhagavatam from pure devotee, do you mean we do so many service, that doesn't mean we are pure devotees. We are in the process of becoming pure devotees, isn't it?
Well, the definition again of pure devotee is, remember the famous verse, Anyabhilashita Shunyam Gana Kamana Vritam, Anukriyana Krishna Nu Shirana Bhakti Bhatama. If you fall into that category, you're pure devotee. It's you have to assess whether you stick to that definition. You may be a pure devotee on the level of sadhana, on the level of raganug, level of bhav, level of prem. Do you stick to that definition? That's only you know that. Anyabhilashita Shunyam, you are devoid of, at least while you serve, you are devoid of gyan, karma, and avritam. It's not covered by gyan and karma, your dedication. Number 3, anukul, it's favorable. Then number 4, Krishna Anushilanam, your shield, your behavior is for the service of pleasing Krishna favorably, to cultivate the grain of bhakti. If you fit into that, you're pure devotee.
Definitely. Like analyzing myself, I can see I'm free from jnana and karma, all this stuff.
Yeah, Vishwanath, he mentions, he say, even if you have jnana and karma, but you make sure they don't cover when you serve, when you chant.
Serve Krishna. But that doesn't mean we're serving purely, because there's still contamination. Yeah,
but again, only you can assess. Do you fit that verse? Now, it's not because we discussed so many times this point. It's not because you are, you feel yourself contaminated that you are doing Mishra Bhakti. Mishra Bhakti, as exposed by Kapil Dev, is totally different. What is Mishra Bhakti in mode of goodness? Remember? Means you want to free yourself. You want to extricate yourself from this world. You're not worshipping, you're not chanting Hare Krishna for the sake of pleasing Krishna. You want to live. That's Mishra Bhakti in mode of goodness. Is it your case, Goloka? When you chant Hare Krishna, you are thinking, I want to live, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. I want to live this place. I'm sick and tired of the whole place. Is it your...
I mean, at times it's come in your mind, but...
Yeah, okay. But is it your main thrust, The
main thrust is just Krishna is present in his name.
Yeah, so it means you're not into Mishra Bhakti.
Yeah.
Then Mishra Bhakti in mode of passion, what is it? Puja, Pratishta. You want to self-recognize yourself, I'm a good devotee, I'm a good lecturer, I'm a good pujari. You are using bhakti as a means of self-aggrandizement. Is it your case?
No.
I don't think so. Knowing you, I don't think so. And then, even worse, by far, Mishra Bhakti in the mode of ignorance, you want to harm others. Can you imagine? Krishna,
Mm.
please kill him. Please kill him. Make sure he dies. That's that's Mishra Bhakti in Tamagun. So I don't think you fall. The problem is when you are we have been pure devotee, no doubt, but the problem is we don't stay there. You follow? This is the problem. Because since we are still struggling with Anishtita Bhakti, as explained by Vishwanath in Madhurya Kadambini, we still are prone to the 6 symptoms of Anishtita Bhakti. So you know those 6, huh? Kantarala, there's an order. Galatala, Vishaya Saga, there's 6. Sometimes you are very thick in your practice, sometimes very thin.
Mm.
Vyudavikalpa, sometimes you have difficulty to maintain your vows even. To uphold the vows. So because of that only, we tend to fall down from that platform of Anyabilashita Shunyam. So then, but it doesn't mean because you fall, you know what I'm saying? Even let's say you cannot, as long as you don't pray for other than the service of the Lord, let me go back on my feet, let me carry on, then it's Apichachudalacharo, you still remain, Sadhuleva Samantavya, you remain a devotee. We should not equate the two. I'm weak, thus I'm a Mishra Bhakta. That's improper. Unless you fit the definitions of Mishra Bhakti as we discussed just now. This I don't know. Only you know. What is your drive when you pray? What is your intent? But we have been pure devotees, no doubt. At times we have been, quite often actually. But we don't stay there, unfortunately. You agree, Vignesh? I can see it's quite
Yes, Prabhu.
he's quite pondering. I mean, I notice devotees tend to equate the two. I'm very low, Prabhu, thus I'm a Mishra Bhakta. Yes and no. I mean, what I don't know. How can I? I'm not in your heart when you pray. Kapil Dev is very precise. He defines the 3 Mishra Bhakti. The barometer is Anyabilashita Shunyam. Very simple. This is the barometer. Another 10 minutes.
We also say that, right? Like one who has Anya Vilashita Shunyam, like he definitely is a pure devotee, Uttama Bhagavad. But we also hear that one who always chants the holy name of Krishna, no, like spontaneously, that is also a qualification of Uttama Bhagavad.
Yeah, as I say, we can be.
So like, is it? Yeah.
We can be practicing this verse on the level of Vedi Sadhana Bhakti. We are Sadaka. On the level of Raganug, on the level of Bhav, on the level of Prem. But obviously, the depths won't be the same. So when you are practicing this verse on the level of Sadaka, just like we are now, Vedi Sadaka Bhakti, then the problem with that phase, it's because it's apprenticeship, we tend sometimes to fall out from this definition of Anyabilashita Shunyam. So at that moment, we are just like we are Apichachudalacharo, we fall into that category. Let's say you accidentally commit a mistake, and then the
Prabhu, is it possible?
Yes, Prabhu. See, go ahead.
You're mute? Whatever.
Go ahead.
What happened? Vignesh? You got froze.
See,
pro-
the verse, there's two verses back to back, 11, 20, 27. Srila Prabhupada, sorry.
Yeah,
Shri-
Prabhu, you
yes,
can
go
hear
ahead.
me, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think there is some
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
there is some network issue. That is some I'm getting some kind of network lag, I suppose. Now, what
Okay.
I was trying to say is that like, is it possible that if we are in a stage of Vaidhi Bhakti,
Hmm.
and if we're not in the stage of Raga Bhakti, we can still be Anyabilashit Shunyam. Is it possible while staying in the Vaidhi Bhakti, or is it that we have to be spontaneous
No,
in the
look,
Raga Bhakti stage to be Anyabilashita?
we're going to come to that. Narad Muni is the perfect example of a perfect Vedi Sadhaka who has perfected his life. Narad falls, we're going to come to that. I mean, I think we have discussed, but again, it will come. Narad is the perfect example of a perfected Siddha by dint of Vedi sadhana. And can you imagine he's got a spiritual body? Narad even can go into the rasa dance. He goes to Narada Kund, he changes his body into Naradi Gopi. So there's no bar. There's no bar. There's no bar to becoming a pure devotee by dint of Vedi. Of course, Narad, you won't find Narad in Vrindavan. He comes once in a blue moon, yes, as Naradi Gopi, but most of the time Narad is not on that rasa. We have seen is more into, I would say, the level of
Vaikuntha.
Vaikunt and Dwarka, I would say. He goes to Dwarka a lot. You have seen in Dwarka, Mathura. But this is the perfect example. Narad is definitely the epitome of a perfect devotee by dint of Vedi. And he got his spiritual body. Let me finish with these two verses to drive the point further home. It says Krishna but to Uddhav 11,
Okay.
20, 27. Jato Shrado Matkatasu Nirvinna Savakamasu Ved Dukatmakam Kamam Parityage Pyanishvaraha Tato Bhajitamam Prita Shradalu Drida Nischayaha Rushamanas Chatan Kamam Dukudakam Sagarayan. So this verse is very important. There are two verses. Krishna says it explains the psychology of a sadhaka. These are key verses. Huh? It explains the psychology of a sadhaka. So we should be feeling at home with those two verses. So this is what he says to Uddhav. Having awakened faith in the narration of my glories, it's a fact. We like Krishna Katha, we take courses, being disgusted with all material activities. So we're getting there. Some of us are already disgusted, some are getting there. Then knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery. This we know philosophically, intellectually, we know. But still, being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. So sometimes we conquer, sometimes we fail, sometimes we succumb. Then he goes, even though he's sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, so sometimes he falls down. My devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to miserable results, and he sincerely repents such activities. So this is exactly the definition, the psychology of a sadhaka. He's still struggling. But if in his struggle, if he sticks to Anyabilashita Shunyam, he remains a Uttama Bhakta, a practitioner Uttama Bhakta. And as he goes on, then gradually he will not succumb anymore. You follow?
Yeah.
You follow? We should not draw a hasty conclusion. Oh, Prabhu, I fell down yesterday, so I'm a totally Mishra Bhakta. You know, if it is occasional, and again, if you carry on, Sadhudeva Samantavya, Krishna is clear, 9:30. He remains a sadhu. Provided he carries on with his bhajan for Krishna. Apitse to the Rasharu, Bhajate Ananya. Ananya. Ananya means Anyabilashita Shunyam. So, you know, he carries on. It's a struggle, yes. Krishna knows. He admits, yes, you are struggling, I can see. But first of all, he repents. If you don't repent, obviously there's something wrong. But it's a struggle, no doubt. That's why we are called apprentice. Sometimes you're an apprentice, and the master, the carpenter master, is going to blast you. You have totally messed up my work. I told you to do that. You messed it up. Sometimes he's going to get the source. Yeah. So in the purport, very interesting, 120, 27, 28, he goes, this is those three, Rina Maharaj, Gopi Prabhu Prabhu, and David Prabhu. The word kamam basically refers to sex attraction and its byproducts in the form of children, home, so forth. Within the material world, the sex impulse is so strong that even a sincere candidate in the loving service of the Lord may sometimes be disturbed by sex attraction or by lingering sentiments for wife and children. A pure devotee certainly feels spiritual affection for all living entities, including the so-called wife and children. But he knows that material bodily attraction leads to no good, for it simply entangles one and one's so-called relatives in a miserable chain reaction of fruitive activities. So then he goes, Drida Nishaya, he should carry on steadily. And then he's going to quote Vishwanath. By my previous shameful life, my heart is polluted with many illusory attachments. Personally, I have no power to stop them. See, the devotee feels totally helpless. Only Lord Krishna within my heart can remove such inauspicious contamination. But whether the Lord removes such attachment immediately or lets me go on being afflicted by them, I will never give up my devotional service to him. It's a very important sentence. In other words, you're helpless, you are struggling, sometimes you win, sometimes you succumb. But still you don't give up. Even if the Lord places millions of obstacles in my path, and even if because of my offenses I go to hell, I will never for a moment stop serving Lord Krishna. So even, you know, he knows I'm finished. I cannot make it. But still he carries on. I'm not interested in mental speculation and fruitive activities, even if Lord Brahma personally comes before me offering such engagements. I won't be even slightly interested. So it sticks to Anyabila, Shita. Although I'm attached to material things, I can see very clearly that they lead to no good, because they simply give me trouble and disturb my devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, and now it's important, I sincerely repent my foolish attachment to so many material things, and I'm patiently waiting for Lord Krishna's mercy. So this is the psychology of a sadhaka. You follow? Those verses are important, 11, 27, 28. Try to remember. Okay. So I guess I'm going to carry on for the next 2 weeks, he told me.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so anyway. Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
I'll send you some homework. Actually, it's not easy to send homework because, you know, what can I do? It's just a list of things, you know. You can share, you can write to me and share with the other. If you have any
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
If you have any, personal realization on those, because what can I do? It's not really philosophical here. It's just enumeration of 64 angas, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Prabhu. Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.